This is actually also a very important subject. I mean, here in the West we mostly think about fasting when we feel we are having too much body weight. Then we want to become a little more thin, and then we think about fasting. But actually fasting is a very spiritual practice, and we find it in all kinds of cultures, and we definitely find it very much also in India. And as I said, it's not only about food fasting. There's many kinds of fasting. You could say that yoga in itself is fasting. Yoga means to fast from yourself, from your little self, or to fast on the self, on the true self. So there's always two kinds of fasting. Fasting either means you stop doing something, or you limit what you are doing to only one thing. That is fasting. Like you can fast on rice. Like you say, for 1 week I will only eat rice. So this is also in yoga, when generally you find these things. Like in asana, we will fast on movement. Asana does not so much mean to be in a particular posture. Asana mostly means that you don't move in that posture, that you stay motionless. And then in breathing exercises also, after we've learned to breathe good and deeply and so on, then the focus will shift towards stopping breath and reducing breath. And meditation means to fast from your mind. And then deep meditation means even to fast from your ego, from your false identity. So yoga and fasting are very much related, and many other words in yoga are similar to fasting, like sadhana, spiritual exercise, or tapas, which means a kind of burning, putting yourself on the grill. This is all very related to fasting, but still fasting also has its own word in Sanskrit. It's called vrat, written V-R-A-T, vrat. And you can have different kinds of vrat. Like you can have the vrat that you never eat sugar. This is like a typical example, and you will find a lot of things like that in India. And of course, the little difference there is that with vrat usually, the objective is not to stop for the rest of your life doing something. It is temporary. Like food fasting, is nothing wrong with food. Food's very good. We all need food. So you don't stop eating food because you want to stop eating food. You stop eating food for some other reason. And so there are generally like 3 big reasons that we can find for fasting in general. And the first one definitely is to gain control. To gain control over yourself. That is the first objective. Then the second thing is that in fasting you can really learn a lot. Because you're putting a little bit of pressure on yourself. You are getting to know yourself a lot better. So this is a second thing, the insight that you get through these fasts. And then the third is purification. So there you are maybe more also on the health level, working, like in food fasting, quite definitely. But in other types of fasts, maybe you are seeking to purify your energy channels, your chakras. You are seeking to purify your senses, your mind, your whole being. So these are the 3 main objectives. In a way, we have this little problem that our desires are unlimited. Like, we have this one desire and we can fulfill it, and maybe 5 minutes later, then we have another desire. And then we run after that. And maybe after 1 month we can fulfill that one, then 5 minutes later the next one is coming. And actually this is a little bit like not our fault. This is just how we are made. My teacher actually used to say this is God's fault. And why is he saying that? Well, he's saying we are all God. We are all having the divine inside, right? And God is unlimited. God is not used to being so much limited by this physical body and all other limitations that we have in this world. So naturally, that which is very much our deepest self always seeks, to have whatever it can think of. Because yes, that's how it thinks of itself. It's not used to being limited. So we are like an unlimited God in a limited form, and we have to kind of deal with that. We cannot desire everything. And definitely all this running after desires is not making us very happy. This is another major thing to understand about desires, that basically if you are without desire, that's when you are happy. And if you fulfill a desire, then temporarily you are without a desire, and then you feel happy. But as I said, yes, after a short while, then again this tendency comes to seek something else. And then again you are, well, maybe not very unhappy, but still there is a little like discomfort, dissatisfaction. Oh, now I want that. So to a little bit step out of this game is yoga, of course, and is fasting very much in particular. I mean, it's definitely not sounding very like modern, right? I mean, we are free people. Huh? In the West, freedom is very much like seen as the big thing that we have gained, and in some measure we have gained some freedom. But sometimes it also seems that the biggest freedom that we have gained is the freedom to very much chain ourselves. To be completely enslaved by ourselves, by our desires, by our taste buds on our tongue, by our mind, by our senses, by our ego, and all these things. And so if you want to be free, if you really want to be truly free, you should not only be free of kings and other people who used to like a little bit dominate other people, but you also have to be free of yourself. You have to be able to do what you want to do. Like I used to talk about it last time also in the class very much, that so often we want to do something, but somehow we can't do it. We are blocked somehow. So to remove these blockages, to become really empowered, to become really a man or a woman, I mean, really like having full control is obtained partially through fasting. So fasting is a kind of reprogramming of yourself, changing old habits, changing ways of thinking, changing wrong ideas also. And it is also like, you could say, a little bit of experimenting with yourself. Like if you're feeling a little bored, having nothing much to do and no real challenges in front of you, then just start some kind of fast, and immediately you will have lots of fun, lots of entertainment, lots of challenge, and lots of things to do. And you will learn so much about yourself. Like even a simple food fast. I mean, I don't know what experience people here have with food fasting, but if you've never done it, then doing just one day of not eating is like quite an experience. No? You get a little like pain in the stomach because the stomach starts contracting, and there's nothing inside, so it's becoming smaller, and this creates a little like pain or discomfort. And then after a while, your system really starts getting a little nervous about the whole situation, not getting any food, so your blood sugar levels are starting to like fluctuate very heavily, and you may feel like very nervous at one moment and quite irritated and angry at the next moment, and it's like not so easy. No? And the very idea that you have not had any food and that this feels like you're going to die, this is one of those wrong ideas that you have to get rid of, because quite clearly you can go without food for a very long time. So to work with yourself in that way is quite entertaining and a good way to move forward a little more quickly, in a way. Of course, if you feel, well, life is already putting so many challenges in front of me, I already have enough on my plate, okay, no problem, right? But if you feel, okay, I'm having a good time, but a little bored, then you can do this fast, that fast, or whatever fast. And definitely also, fasts are obviously advisable if you feel you really have a problem with some particular kind of addiction. If you're addicted to sweets, let's say chocolates and all that, then, well, at least don't eat them once a week. One day a week, you don't eat them. The rest of the week you can still eat them. But one day a week, you don't eat them. And that gives you the control. That gives you a little bit more power towards this desire. And that will make it much easier to a little bit limit the quantities, the rest of the time. So same way, if you like to have a little bit too much to drink, okay, then at least, sometime don't drink. And so with many addictions like that, even like TV addiction, or if you have young kids who are always behind a computer, then just telling them that one day a week, there is like one day without screens, no screens, no mouse, nothing of that, is just a very good way to a little bit teach them that it's possible, and that they can do it, and that they have this control, and teach them this control. So in that way, it's a good way to deal with particular kinds of problems. And definitely also advisable if you are feeling very unhappy. If you are feeling like you have no control over your life and you are in a miserable situation, you are either very depressed or very sad or always afraid or maybe very angry or something like that, then doing a really strong fast of some kind of other can completely change that situation. It's like a really good emergency tool in case of strong, persistent emotional distress. So, in that way, there's many possibilities. Like you can fast from chairs for a month. Like we all have this problem a little bit with meditation and sitting on the floor and not having any muscles in our back to keep our back straight. Okay, if you want to change something about that, then get rid of the chairs for a while. So this is another way of looking at it. And you find so many things. Like sadhus then in particular have many different kinds of fasts that they do. Like for example, they will vow that they will never stay in one place for more than 3 days. This way they don't get attached to any place, they don't get attached to any people, they always are on the move. This is very typical. And likewise you can have sadhus who say, I'm not going away from this place for 20 years. Like they stay in one particular ashram or island on a river or something, and they say, I'm not going. Even if I'm starving to death, I'm not going, I'm staying here for 20 years. So all these kinds of things are possible to work with. There's of course also fasting from sex, sexual abstention. We'll actually talk about that a lot in the class on yoga and bhoga, which is enjoyment. Bhoga means enjoyment. So then we're talking about yoga, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all these things, nice things, and how they relate to yoga. So I'll not so much go into that now. Many kinds of vrat are possible. Vrat really does mean like a vow. You are really making a promise that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So it's a little ego game also, meaning that when you make yourself this vow, then you're going to want to stick to it. Like in Rasa Sadhana, I always say that also. It's a little like thing to set you in a situation where you have to do something. And you cannot just, if you say I will not eat for 7 days, you cannot just stop the fast after 2 days. You will feel quite miserable, about yourself, and especially if you've been telling other people, you will feel very ashamed towards them. So you will try, you will give it your best shot, and that's a little game that you are playing, and it's good to play these games. But of course, don't overestimate your abilities. If you never fasted for 1 day, then don't decide to fast for 7 days. That's quite ridiculous. You have to a little bit build up your strength. Don't underestimate these things. Sometimes they are really a lot more difficult than you would have imagined. There's a lot of wind out there or something. I don't know. So then let's start with the first main vrat, which is upavas, which means food fasting. So there the objective quite clearly is purification, to remove all kinds of waste from your body. And the first waste that will go out of your body is everything which has been accumulating inside your digestive system, and especially in the intestines. There's many little folds there, and there's all kinds of waste that's been stuck there maybe for 10 years. So if you're not eating, then after a while, but this takes about 3 days before that really starts, after a while the body will start removing all this waste because it's food. And it will start digesting that waste. So that is the first cleaning of the digestive tract. And of course, if you're not giving the body any food, it will also start using the fat reserves that you have in your body. And fats hold many toxins. Many toxins actually are lipophilic or whatever you call it in English, but they like to be in a fatty environment. So they will easily move there in under the skin, especially in the fatty layer there. There's a lot of toxins. So your body will start using that fat and the toxins will be freed and be eliminated from the body. So it's a great purification. And so that kind of objective is obtained already from a one-day fast if you do it regularly. Like in India, very common that a person has a specific day on which every week he will fast. Like maybe this will be the same day as he was born. Like if he was born on a Monday, it will be on a Monday. Or it will relate to astrology or numerology or whatever. Or it will just be a practical day. Like if you have to work hard, it's not so easy to not eat. So maybe it's on a Saturday or a Sunday when you don't have to work, and then you can do it. So this is very good. This is a regular cleaning of the system. But so if you want to go for a more deep cleaning, then minimum is 4 days. Then you actually have only 1 day of real cleaning. After 3 days, that really starts. Because the food actually that you eat today will take 3 days to come out completely. So only after that, the system is completely empty, and then that real cleaning will start. But so, like a very good period to fast is 7 days. Then you really have a good time. And I think you feel like that's a lot, right? But actually, to fast 7 days is so much easier than to fast 3 or 4 days. Because the first days are really the most difficult. The first days is where your stomach is really creating like cramps, where you're getting like dizzy or nausea or feeling nervous or upset somehow. Your whole system kind of responds to it and tries to find a way out. But after a while, the body realizes, yes?
Does fasting means really not eating?
Yes, well, we'll talk about it. There's many ways to do it. But for the moment, I'm talking about really not eating, yes. It seems like a lot, but it's actually not all that difficult. Because then, these symptoms are really mostly there like the first and the second day. Especially the second day is usually the most difficult. And then the third day already is easier. And then from the fourth day onwards, it's really quite pleasing. You don't feel so much like having food. You're feeling a little lightheaded, but in a quite clear way. And as long as you don't have to run around, or do any work, which is of course not the idea, and you can just really have a holiday, spend a nice time and do some maybe meditation or read some spiritual literature. All these things will become so much more clear at that point. You have no idea how your digestion is continuously keeping you down. If you look at the gunas, Raja, Sattva, Tamas, then Tamas is this energy which brings you down, which brings you to the ground, which stops you from moving up in your energy. So, but this Tamas is largely created by your digestion. Your digestion requires so much energy. So all that energy is then going there, but when you don't eat, then all that energy is available, and then you can much more easily have your energy move upward, and then you will read some maybe spiritual book which you were reading before but not really understanding very much, and then you will read it and then it will be clear, because you will be quite different. So it's really quite advisable to do that if you can, have the time to do that and take a holiday, because obviously you have to do that. For 1 day maybe not. If you're not eating 1 day and you're not very thin, maybe like I'm quite thin, so I have to be quite careful. I don't have a lot of reserves. But if not, then sure, 1 day you can even work. As long as it's not really very hard physical work, you can do it. But if you do longer time, then you have to stop working and be very relaxed and have a good time. And you really, really will have a good time. You will have quite some spiritual experiences, and it can go further, like you can get little like visions, things that happen, like in America with American Indians. It's very common for medicine men to go fasting for 4 days or 5 days somewhere in nature. They go. When you fast, you don't need anything, so you just go, you find a nice place, and you sit there for 4 or 5 days. And then they have a vision quest, as they call it, and this vision then gives them some idea about what is their task in this world or whatever is coming to them, or, so this is quite common there. So it's quite unpredictable what will happen. But so the first time is a little difficult. You can also get a little headache, like from these toxins that are coming out. If they are not properly eliminated, they can give you a little bit of a headache. So we also have to accept and understand that we are so much more polluted today than people were like 100 years ago. So we have really a lot more toxins in our system. So in that way, it's really not advisable to start with 7 days. That's actually these days not really advisable. It's advisable to first, for a long time, every week fast for 1 day. And already there you have a cleaning out. And then a little bit longer maybe, and then slowly go to 7 days. And then you can go further. In India, it's not uncommon also, mostly sadhus I would say, to fast for 14 days, for 21 days, up to 40 days. 40 days is like what is still required, quite healthy exercise. More is maybe a little bit unhealthy exercise. And definitely 40 days also means you have done 1.5 moons. It's about 6 weeks. And that way, they say that whatever is achieved there, like on a spiritual level, is completed. After 40 days, it is really completed. So, I mean, especially if you're young, if you're having the time and if you're having the desire to move forward a little bit, then doing something like that, under good guidance, I would say, is very, very good. 40 days is not such a long time. And as I say, after a while it becomes quite easy. You, of course, will feel a little weak and things like that, but what's the problem? It's not a big issue. And the compensation will be so strong that actually you will have a hard time to start eating again. You will not want to start eating again. This is a common problem in people who do long fasts. They don't want to go back to this tamasic feeling, to this feeling that, of heaviness that the body creates. Yes?
Excuse me. To do this and meditate together, because meditation asks a lot of concentration, but not eating. Is it possible?
Yes, absolutely possible. Because the energy that is required for concentration, you can get it a different way. Like if you have lots of headache also, then you can do pranayams, and it will definitely help to give you that energy, and also, of course, give you the energy for meditation. But clearly, to do a very long fast is not a thing to do if you're not healthy. That's very clear. If you're not healthy, a short fast may actually be advisable depending on what kind of disease you have. But if you're not healthy, then you should not do it alone. So, then as you said, you can fast completely. But actually fasting completely also means you don't drink. But that should never be done for more than 3 days. That is quite clear. And is generally not advisable. Because if you don't drink, then sure, for your willpower, for your strength, this will be quite a good exercise, right? It's really not easy. You will feel very thirsty. And you will fight your body there. And, so it's a good exercise. But for the body, it's really not so healthy. Because of all these toxins that are being freed, and you are not drinking, so then, there's no elimination. So actually drinking a lot of water is very advisable when you do a fast. So this is the first thing. And don't drink too much. It won't fill your stomach. It'll just run through. So it won't really help the hunger feeling. you know. And it might cool you down a little bit too much also. But drink as you feel like it, sure. That is a very, very good praxis. And then another little step that you can take to make it a little easier is to add something to the water. And so then, for example, people will fast on honeyed water. So water with maybe 1 spoon of honey dissolved in it. You know? Usually lukewarm, you drink it. That is giving you a little bit of calories, a little bit of energy, also nice minerals and vitamins and all kinds of things which your body can use. So that makes the fast a little bit less difficult. So more easy to make it a bit longer. No? So in that way you can play around with it. No? Another one is lemon water. Lemon is also very, very good combustible. No? Actually, most things in our system are converted first to citric acid, no? Lemon juice, you could say, or the essence of lemon juice. And then the final conversion, the final combustion is taking place. So you're getting a food which is extremely easy to digest, which is the idea. If you are fasting on something, then you take something which is very, very easy to digest, which puts minimum stress on your digestive system, so that the system can still work a lot on purifying itself and on renewing itself, because it will not only purify itself. You have to imagine that the whole system, all these organs are a little bit in a shock. They're not getting any food. They've been working for as long as you are living. Every day, they've been working, and then suddenly they're not getting any food. So they're getting a little worried. So they're doing their very best. They're very nice servants of us. They're doing their very best. So they're going to start a big cleanup campaign. And after that is done, they're going to start renewing tissues. So many of the tissues that are there, they're going to be renewed and going to be worked upon, so that the system is like in the best possible condition in case some new food is coming. Because they don't know. Maybe only a little bit is coming, so they have to make the best of it. So they are trying to get ready to receive it. So in that way, it's not just a purification, it's really like a rejuvenation of your whole system. And that means that like the little bit of minerals and vitamins that you are giving in honey, or also, for example, fruit juice is also possible. Watered fruit juice, I would say. That is giving a little bit of help to the system to do this process. Because of course, if nothing is coming, then it's not so easy to make this rejuvenation successfully. So, as I said, yes, juice, but juice can be quite strong, no? I mean, lots of sugar, lots of sweet, lots of acid, no? Can be there. So a little bit watering it down makes it much easier for your system. You have to understand that the longer you are fasting, the more your intestines are becoming like those of a baby. Very, very sensitive. So you can easily upset them. And if you upset them at that time, it's not going to be pleasant, but it might actually also have more longer term negative effects. So you have to be very careful with your system at that time. So even fasting on soup is possible, but then you don't take just any soup. Like you will take tomato soup or pumpkin, courgette, this kind of very, very easily digestible vegetables. And in case of tomato, without the peels, no? Really peeled tomato. Red beets also are good for making soup, because red beet is very heating. And this is another thing which we have to be very, very aware of. We are not living in a hot country. If you're living in a hot country, not taking any food is quite easy. Actually, it makes it more bearable to eat. No? You don't really feel like eating so much if it's so hot. So, but in our country, if you are doing it in winter time, you are crazy. Maybe not if you're taking a fast for 1 day, okay. You might be able to do that. But to fast for 7 days in winter time, maybe if you can stay indoors and have the heating on all the time, okay, yes, but the moment you have to start going out and so on, you're going to get ill. No? So the heat is another aspect that you have to look at. You have to make sure you're not getting cold. also in the night when you're sleeping, you really have to cover up very well. And then these red beets are very interesting. And personally, I've done a lot of fasts on raw grated red beet. So you take a piece of red beet, like maybe like this, every day, and you grate it, and you eat it raw, then it becomes like a little, bigger, no? Because you grated it, and you eat that maybe in 3 times, no? And that gives you a lot of heat, so you don't get cold so easily. And that makes the fast a little more easy. And red beet is also very purifying for the blood. So in that way, I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, there's so many different ways you can do it. Another one which is very popular in India is milk fasting. But of course there everybody has a cow, more or less. So this milk is fresh. And fresh milk is very easy to digest. Sterilized milk is actually very difficult to digest because all the proteins have become like coagulated because of the sterilization process. But fresh milk is very easy to digest. That's why the calves and the babies and can actually digest it. So that is very, very good for your system, and that can be done for a very long time. Like I know one person named Milk Baba, and he's named Milk Baba because that's all he takes. No? So that is quite possible. And yogurt also. Definitely yogurt is very, very good to use in a fast. Like milk, it will give many good nutrients and will be very easy to digest. Actually, it is already pre-digested by the bacteria that are in there. But moreover, it is digested in a lactic fermentation process using lactic acid, which is the best possible fermentation process for our intestines. Actually, in our intestines, we continuously have like a little battle going on between 2 kinds of digestion processes. One is a fermentation process, and one is a putrefaction process, a rotting process. And the more the foods that we take are like old, meat-related, fish-related, eggs, old cheese, all these things, they are more tending to rot. And this kind of digestion is producing many more toxins, a lot more gases, and a lot more discomfort to the whole system. So the best possible digestion is through fermentation, which comes mostly from vegetarian food, and milk products which are not old, fresh milk products. So, and especially then yogurt will do that. And it's one of the best ways if you really have problems in the intestines, you have continuous constipation, diarrhea, this kind of combination, then for a couple of days just fast on yogurt. But they're actually also better to make yogurt water. So you mix like 1/3 yogurt, 2/3 water, something like that, depending on the taste also and the thickness of the yogurt to start with. And one recipe there is to add a little ghee in which some spices have been put. So the ghee is heated, the spices are put, and then when the spices are well like grilled in the ghee, you put that in the yogurt and then you can drink it. And the spices to put are like cumin, hing, of course, is also very good, also called asafoetida, and black salt, and also black pepper. So this is a very, very good one. And to fast on something like that for 7 days is really not difficult at all. You will feel fantastic. You will really feel fantastic. And it's a very, very good cleaning and a completely rebalancing of your system. And don't overdo it, but still you can take like maybe 1 liter of yogurt water in a day. That already gives you quite a lot to go with if you don't have to like do a lot of work, and you can really easily do that. And the effect will be quite good. And another one that my teacher often used was the pepper honey ghee mixture. This means that you are grinding 7 black pepper balls, so they should be black, not white. You're adding like 1 teaspoon of honey and a little pinch of ghee, not much is needed. And you just mix that and you eat it. And because of the honey, the pepper will not taste so very strong. Ghee is clarified butter.
You can buy that in English.
Yeah, in Indian shops you can easily find it.
Yes.
Yes. But so it's butter which has been a little bit heated in bain-marie, and then the white stuff comes floating on top, which is the protein, and you take that out, and so then you really have the fat of the butter. And that you can store for a very long time. While butter, you can't really store it without putting it in a fridge. So, these are the things you can do, but many other things you can do. I would say that in that way, there are many, many good traditions in every country and every place. And some of them may be really useful because maybe more suited to the local climate, more suited to local conditions. On the other hand, I would also say that today there's many, many new books coming with new ideas on this, and to be a little bit careful in that. Because the good thing about the tradition is that it's been going on for maybe hundreds of years, so people have the experience with it and they know, the effect of it. But, sometimes people these days, they write books about, living on pomegranate seeds for a month or something. I don't know. Maybe it's a good idea. It would probably sell very well. It's like a very beautiful fruit to put on the cover, and you can make a big thing out of it. But who knows? It might actually be very harmful. It might do something very specific to your liver or to this or that. So stick to what is known. Stick to what is there. That's already quite enough. You don't need to do anything very, very special. Be careful. You are putting a certain stress on your system, so don't fool around. And especially when you are doing such a fast, there are some things you should not do, like alcohol. It's not really a good combination. Your system is very sensitive at that time. No? Drugs, of course, also not a very good combination. No? Too much physical activity, if you are food fasting, is definitely not a good combination. Sex also included, actually. And you also have to be really careful for excessive sleep, because you will feel a little bit more like weak. Lying down will sound even better than usual, So then to take long sleep often happens. You also don't have so much to do because you're not allowed to do so much, right? So you're getting a little bored, so you tend to sleep a lot. That's absolutely to be avoided. Sleeping too much, I talk about it a lot. Sleeping too much is one of the worst things you can do to your mind, because then your mind is going into dreams and creating all sorts of nonsense there. Dreams have some purpose, but excessive dreaming is very tiring and makes you very confused and a little crazy. So don't do it. And especially not at that time when you are very sensitive. So that is a thing to remember. And then another thing which is important is how to come out of it. And there is a general rule that if you have been fasting for a certain period of time, then you should take the same period of time to come back out of it. So if you've been not eating for 7 days, then don't eat a steak with French fries and whatever, on the 8th day. That's very, very harmful. That's very, very stupid. No? Then better not do it at all. Better don't start this kind of games. No? So if you are fasting for 7 days, you have to actually, on the 8th day, maybe start with a little bit, something very easy digestible, like a little fruit or some pumpkin, or something like that. No? And then the next day you add a little bit more, and then after 7 days only, you are eating along with everybody else, whatever is there on the table, you eat it. No? So if you fast for 3 days, you are going to come out of it for 3 more days, and so on. This is a very good way to look at it. If you've been fasting on some particular kind of food, then also you should be careful, but less careful, like maybe 1/3 of the time. If for 7 days, or let's say for 9 days, you have only been eating this yogurt milk mixture, then yes, for 3 days, you have to a little bit build up, and then you can. Okay? Because your system has been working, so it's quite used to it. But still, it has been working on one particular food only, and that actually also has given it a lot of peace, because we cannot imagine in a way how all these different foods that we are continuously eating these days are making our system, problems. Nowadays, one moment you eat a guava, and then the next moment you may be eating some lasagna, and then afterwards some Mexican chilies, and I don't know, all these kinds of things, and every day different. We are living like kings. And so this is not easy for our system, because each food requires particular enzymes, particular bacteria, particular approach to be properly digested. So if you are sticking only to one food for some time, this is actually very easy for your system. Everything is there, all the bacteria are there, every enzyme is there, and then it can go easily. So then you have to a little bit build it up. Continue with maybe this yogurt water, but add something more to it. Also have a little soup maybe or something. Slowly you can come out of it.
So too much diversity in the menu is not good for our
No. I mean, diversity is generally speaking a good way to make sure you have like everything. You have enough vitamins and you have enough minerals. So a little diversity is not bad, but too much diversity is also not good. There's too much confusion for your system. So it's to do a lot with the senses again. Why do we want to eat always something special? It's because we are thinking this will give us something. And actually, most of the people, when they eat, they don't even think about it. So it's not all that important. So stick to the things you like. They're usually the things that are good for you. So, I mean, apart from chocolate pies, things like that, So this is it, really. I mean, about food fasting. Build it up slowly and get out of it slowly, and don't make it too strong in the beginning. Slowly. But you can go really quite far, and especially if you take the help of something like this yogurt milk. Fasting 40 days is really not a big deal, and you will have really completely changed yourself. You will really have gained so much more control. Then whatever else you have to do, you will know. I'm a man. I can do it. It's really changing. So, but don't underestimate it. It's very, very difficult in the beginning. Mentally, it's all in the mind. At that moment, you're not going to die after 2 days of fasting, but it will feel like you are. Right? So to go against that feeling is very, very good. It's your reptile brain here which is talking at that time, right? So your more primitive brain. And that primitive brain also makes you do many other things you don't want to do. So to a little bit teach it that you are the boss. Good thing. In yoga, we want to learn to be free and, not to be serious about everything. Light, that. Sure, but first you need a little bit of control. Because if you don't have that control, then you can't. So I say that a lot. The yoga of being serious for a while is necessary in order to be able to really practice the yoga of not being serious, which is what yoga is all about. Yoga is not about being serious. It's about really understanding that it's all a game. Anyway, that's philosophy. So I don't know, anything more question about food fasting? And then I can move on to the next one.
Food fasting.
Well, I wouldn't say on anything. Who knows? I would do it on something from which it is known. In a tradition somehow. It doesn't have to be the Indian tradition. Yes. But in a tradition somehow where it is known that this is working. Like you need to pick a kind of food which is easy to digest and still gives you a lot. Like milk or yogurt. This is a very good example. Also, if you fast really on food, you could fast on rice. But much better to fast on what in India they call khichdi, which is a mixture of rice and dal. Dal being pulses, like soybeans and lentils and chickpeas and all these things. So to have a mixture of that prepared in a way that is easy to digest, that requires a little bit of knowledge also on how to prepare it, but will give you really complete food. You will have everything you need there. You can fast on that for years. It's very, very easy. But if you, for example, just fast on white rice, that's not a good idea. It's going to make you very constipated to start with. But also it's not bringing you a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals, and a lot of other things that you also need. It's only bringing you starch. You might as well fast on French bread, pain français, de baguette.
Yeah, I don't know the word in English. It's called haverflour.
Oats. Well, yes and no. If they are freshly pressed, absolutely yes. But if they are old, no. Then they are very tamasing. They have a lot of energy. That's true. That's why they give it to horses. Then they run very fast. But this is like a grain, and it has been squashed, so that it becomes a flake. But so it is completely dead. And maybe it's then stored for 3 weeks in the shop, and for 2 more months in your cupboard, and so it's dead. So it has no prana, it has no energy, only tamas element is there. If you are taking pulses and lentils and all these things, if you put them in the ground, they will sprout. So they are still alive, so that's very good. And I used to have, I don't have it anymore, I sold it actually. But I used to have this little grinder, where I could make my own oat flakes with real oats. That was fantastic for breakfast. Fantastic, also taste-wise is very good. And then you roast it a little bit in a frying pan. Yes, it's like two little mills in metal, and it just falls in between, and it flattens it up. So choose things anyhow which you feel for you are easy to digest, and which are known to have quite a complete mixture of essential elements, nutrients.
Apples are good. Fresh apples are good.
Apples, yes, fruits are good.
But if you fast, won't your body shrink your muscles to conserve energy?
Well, mostly the fats will go. Before the body really starts degrading the muscles, in order to have something to eat, you have to fast a really long time. Sure, if you fast more than 40 days, that is what's going to start happening. And even if you are very thin, maybe even before it will start. But most people not. Most people can do 40 days without that really happening. You will be more thin afterwards, of course, but that's just the fat which has been taken out from everywhere, and you'll be very clean. But most of the muscles will still be there. But of course, if you fast much longer, then you die. Depending also a little bit on what you are doing. I mean, it's quite known. Like most people will die after 2 months, right? Most, like normal people. But on the other hand, some Indian yogis have fasted for much, much longer than that and still survived. But that's because they really very much understand the art of not doing anything. So they are not wasting any energy, they are not thinking, they are not moving, they are just there in samadhi or some meditation or whatever. And so they can do it. But most people can do it, at least here, it's still working. And this consumes, in a normal situation, about 1/4 of the calories that you are eating. So if you can't stop this, then, you need food. One other thing also, maybe I should explain. When poor people have no money and they cannot eat, that's not fasting. because they will still desire it. So in their mind, continuously they will be thinking about it, or at least trying to figure out a way to get the money and to get some food. So fasting should be done very differently. And maybe I can most easily explain that with an example of my teacher. He always wanted to know when we were going to fast. Like, as I said, this was very regular that, once a week you would have a fast. So he would ask, oh, you're going to fast on Thursday? Okay, very good. And what do you like to eat? Then you say, oh, I very much like, puris or something, very nice. And then, especially on that day, he would make it.
Oh my God.
And he would even ask you to help in the kitchen and to prepare it for everybody. So that, you have no more choice. If at that time you are thinking, oh, these puris, I want them, your life is hell. So you have to really get it out of your mind. I mean, it's quite normal, I think, if you are doing a food fast in the beginning that, you have a little bit like craziness in your head that you want some food. But it should not take too long. I mean, you really need to have this understanding, this maturity that this is not the way to do it. And definitely if you're going for a 7 days fast, you should not for 7 days be thinking about food, right? This is totally not productive. Huh? You should really at that point say, okay, now no time for food. And use whatever you already have in terms of meditation, quality or mantra or whatever, breathing exercise, to get this idea out of your head. And enjoy being without food. And enjoy maybe even preparing it for others and serving it to others and seeing them enjoy it. And be free from it.